Greetings, my friends. I'm the Monty Man, the producer of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast, a production of Take 12 Recovery Radio. Now, the following podcast has been edited specifically for sharing with you, our viewers, the topics so vital in maintaining a healthy state of recovery. Now, whether you're brand new to recovery or a seasoned veteran, we believe that you will find this episode helpful to you as you live out the life that we know that you will want to live. So let's join the Came to Believe Recovery podcast team as we discuss the topic for this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. You've tuned in to the Came to Believe Recovery podcast, a production of Take 12 Recovery Radio. Please visit their website at cametobelieverecovery.org. I wanted to play this little sound clip in honor of the topic, resting on our laurels. Here's Bruno Mars. Check this out.
Today I don't feel like doing anything. I just wanna lay in my bed. Don't feel like picking up my phone, so leave a message at the tone. 'Cause today I swear I'm not doing anything, nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Yeah, that might be okay once in a while to sleep in and just kind of, I'm not doing anything, and maybe a well-deserved rest, but that's probably not the wisest philosophy of life on a regular basis, right, you guys?
This is true, especially if it has to do with our being recovered.
So I want to know, did any of you look up the definition of laurels?
Oh, Tom did.
Yeah,
Did you, Tom?
I looked up laurels, which gives you one definition, and then if you go to resting on your laurels, it gives you a different definition. I mean, for all the listeners, laurels are a type of flower.
Yeah,
I didn't even
Type
know
of flower
that.
that were put into like crowns or things given to sports or people that won things. So if you won a race or something in ancient Greece, you got a wreath of laurels.
yes.
And if you rested on your laurels, it meant that you rested on your accomplishment and did nothing else. And so
Right.
that's where it came from. And
Yeah.
you're surprised, don't you, Monty, that I had that all dialed in.
You
huh?
know, when I was looking it up, I thought, I'll bet he's doing this too. Yeah, in fact, the Greek god Apollo on the coins, on the Greek coins, was wearing laurels around his
Right.
head. But you're right. It's being satisfied with one's past successes and kind of riding the wave based on that. And I think in recovery, sometimes we say you can't live a successful life on yesterday's recovery, right? That would be considered resting on your laurels. Yeah, I did not know that either, but makes total sense. So where are we going with this, you guys?
Well,
Let's
I mean,
go
I think,
everywhere with it.
yeah, we're going everywhere. I mean, Alicia and I had a good talk yesterday when we were prepping for this about where are we resting on our laurels? Like, have we any pieces of our life? And what does that look like? What is in recovery, even within the recovery that we've done, Founders Recovery? How does resting on our laurels look in our life? And does it have to be disaster right away? And, you know, can we work through that process of those things that we just kind of decide this is good enough for now? I like this part, and I'm not willing to go any further. I've gotten quite the success I want in this element, and I don't need to do any more. Of course, I think it's a flawed philosophy,
Yeah.
but I've participated in it. There's a couple of things still in my life that I think I made some changes that bring me out of this, you know, terrible consequences mode, but have not maximized the potential of my new character. And so I call myself resting on my laurels. And our program says it's a dangerous place to rest on our laurels.
Well, I could bet that every single person is resting on their laurels in some area.
Sure.
It's just, but then we need to be aware of it, I guess, or because no one is doing all the things all the time like I want them to.
I think the worst case scenario, and we struggle with this, I think, with Came to Believe, and we don't struggle, we endeavor to make sure everyone is sufficiently encouraged that they leave a retreat and just stop there.
Right.
They think that 1 through 9 they did their 4th step and they just stop. And I call that resting on your laurels. If you don't pick up 10, 11, and 12 and you rest on an actions taken, do a few amends and just try to roll, I don't think you're going to get well, if you don't do step 10, you don't get all the promises of step 10, number 1, or 11. So I think that's a worst case scenario, is that somebody would run through the program and then just kind of go on with life without having to follow any kind of a course of action on a daily basis to inspire growth.
I'll never forget going to a Billy Graham crusade years ago with my wife up in Portland. And he made the statement, and Billy Graham was known to do 15-minute sermons, and thousands of people would respond. And he always preached out of the book of Matthew. It was the salvation message, and it was incredible, right? But his biggest concern was, okay, now what? Now what? And he always worried because of all those thousands of people that would respond, but there was little to no discipleship follow-up, right? And so what do we do with that now that we've experienced this wonderful connection with our God? Now what do we do? Well, we know that's laid out pretty clearly in steps 10, 11, and 12 for those of us in the 12-step world, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And the key is that there is something that has to be done.
Yeah.
Right? It is that it's key. And I was just looking in the big book, and it actually says we can't rest on our laurels. What we really have is a daily reprieve based upon our spiritual condition. So the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So the maintenance of our spiritual condition is connected to not resting on your laurels. I think they're intimating, if you're resting on your laurels, along with other things that you're not progressing, that might be physical or just things in your life, is your spiritual condition is not being maintained. And maintaining our spiritual condition, we know, means constant contact, growth, listening, communicating.
And it could be a little different for everybody, right? For some people, it might be a combination of a lot of things: working with others, maybe sponsoring people, being connected to a circle of folks that believe the way you do spiritually, spending time in devotion and prayer. I was thinking about this because one of the questions was, are you doing 10, 11, and 12 constantly or consistently? And what does that look like? For me, it's pretty simple. I've simplified it, but sometimes when we simplify things, the danger is then we don't do them because they're so simple. So I have to watch that. But it looks like this for me. Literally, upon retiring at night, as I'm moving in the direction of taking my evening medication and, turning down the bed and doing all that stuff, I'm reviewing my day. Okay, Lord, I know that I've been selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking someplace in my day, every day, because that's the nature of man. I'm very aware of some of those areas, but the ones I'm not aware of, please show them to me. And sometimes it's not real pleasant because it'll come to, God will bring it to my mind. And I'm thinking, I'm going to owe an amends on that one, and then upon awakening, very first thing in the morning, I yell at Alexa, to put on worship music. She puts on worship music, and I ask God to, direct my thinking today. What I don't do, and I used to do, is I used to ask God to join me in my day. Wrong. What makes me think, when I say, Lord, I'm going to go over to Fred's house today. Please come with me as I talk to him about such and such. What makes me think that's what God wants me to do? My tendency is to want to invite God into my little plans instead of being open to be invited into his. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you're getting ready you're his boss. Who's the boss here, right?
Yeah, right. Right. God, we're going to go here. So,
Yeah.
come on.
But Lord, I'm going to go over to John's. If it's your will, please guide me and show me in my heart whether this is the thing you'd like me to do and how to do it. That's a better.
Yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
I don't have that hat on, so I come up with these things.
Just the hat knowledge.
It's a little
Guys,
tight on my
anybody
thing.
that normally just listens, you have to go watch this one. You have to go.
You have to just come and see this thing on his head.
It's not getting better, guys. It's getting worse. I don't know. Monty, I don't know what they're putting in the water out there in Albany, Oregon. But it's a call to action for me. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty one of the things I'll generally tell somebody who's struggling with something, and I'll say, what about let's kind of look at the serenity prayer, the peace. God grant me the what does it say? Wisdom to
The serenity.
the serenity
To accept
to
the things I cannot.
change,
know.
the courage to change
We
the
should know this.
things, and the wisdom to the different. It's funny that you don't know it when you do it. So I'll say to someone, all right, you got this issue. All right, is there anything you can do about it? If there is, you need to be doing it. Right? If there's nothing you need to be doing about it, you need to move on. You need to live with it and take the next right action and be okay. And it's kind of like resting on your laurels. I really look at things that are driving me nuts. And in most cases, guys, in my life, there is something I could be doing about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the laurels part that I'm not. I'm frustrated with such a thing. I'm frustrated with such a thing. Well, what did I do about it? And if I did everything I could do about it, I got to let it go.
And that's a step 10.
And that's
there.
a step 10. It's a step 10.
step 10,
Right?
yeah.
Right. But it's not, easier said than done. Whenever we have to look, I have found when you tell somebody, well, blah, 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 well, what can you do about it? Well, what do you mean? What can I do about it? So-and-so says, again, what can you do about it?
Yeah, you get the yeah buts. They come back to the yeah buts.
Yeah, and you go, well, can you change them or whatever the situation? And if you can,
Right.
So it's very important. We're action people now. We have to be. Because we'll drift into morbid reflection, like it says. We'll drift into resting on our laurels and decide, this thing has just beat me so many times, forget it. I give up. And the give ups is
How
that.
do we know though when to be like the coach, I guess, of like what you just said, and when we just need to say, like with sponsees, I'm thinking of all my sponsees, and I come at them and want to coach and fix and, well, don't be so stupid. I don't say it like that, but
I think you do.
I think
probably.
Jesus would just sit there and say, I love you, and right. And it's
But
not,
he challenged some people that came to him with issues, and
Sure.
would challenged them with a he does
pick
parable.
up your mat and walk.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Stop
came
putting
at
the
some with a
food in
parable,
your mouth.
right? Talked about the seed in the vine, right? If your branch is not good, he talked about that. The Bible talks about those that don't work shouldn't eat, kind of thing, and there's some instruction on that. I think there's some good counseling.
So I had an experience yesterday. A very dear brother in the Lord and fellow recovery guy who's not doing well at all, and I haven't seen him in many years. And he came by the house yesterday. Not doing good. Living on the streets up in Portland. Has an adopted child from Africa, was in Africa making a lot of money, having his own weed plantation, getting involved in fentanyl, and he's got a girl that lives on the street that he's trying to rescue. I mean, the story just went on, and I'm listening to him. And at one point he paused, and I thought, okay, what do I say? And so I just asked him, I said, brother, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I didn't know what else to say. You know what I mean? I mean, I had all these suggestions and answers and, here's the formula, but that's what came out of my mouth. What do you want to do? Because he's not so mentally disturbed that he doesn't understand that or can't comprehend putting together a solution. He's not. But he's headed there.
Did he answer you?
Yeah. He goes, well, I need to get right. And I said, okay. I said, would you be open to talking to a good friend of mine that works for City Team up in Portland? I mean, you're homeless. It's right there. This guy he's a guy that he was one of my students in Adult and Teen Challenge years ago. He's works with guys all the time. He's an amazing gentleman. I said, would you be open to talking to him? He said, yes. I said, okay. So I'm going to call him and I'm going to ask permission to give you his phone number and then I'll text it to you. Would that be okay? And he agreed. So we'll see. But inside my gut, I mean, I wanted to give him all the solutions that we know work, right? But what came out was, what do you want to do? It was simple. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think, like when we're coaching somebody or they're asking us for help, sometimes they're really not looking for a big explanation. Sometimes they just want us to listen. Will you hear me? Do you see me? In my pain, and I told him, one thing I said, I have missed you deeply, and he teared up.
Monty, that reminds me of a story, or reminds me of another incident, kind of like that. What do you want to do? What do you need to do about it? And I was speaking to somebody yesterday. And I used the analogy of, it was like, I prayed to God. Why didn't he do it? I prayed to God. I'm just waiting for God to move. I'm just waiting for what you'll get sometimes from like a person you were talking to, is they don't understand why God's not just pulling them up out of the gutter while they're just sitting in the gutter, right? I mean, sometimes.
We need to take a step.
And I said, remember the yoke scripture? There were 2 rests in the yoke scripture that Jesus promised. The first was, come to me, all you weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That's like the salvation rest. But then he went on to say, take my yoke and learn from me. And I will give you soul rest. Yeah. So he says, and my burden will be light, and my yoke is easy. It's easy and light. I get those confused. Yeah. But what he's saying is, and we say this at retreats, there will be a burden, but it will be easy and the yoke will be light. But there is one. So somebody comes to me and says that, I say, again, what are you doing about it? Or I think in your case, Monty, I've done that too in the right. So what do you want to do? I mean, until you get the guy go, well, what do you think I should do? Then you have a more opening to give some advice if they say that. But I think people don't like that. What do you mean? I have to do stuff? Well, yeah.
Yeah, when you put it in their lap, they don't like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's resting on our laurels. I mean, that's part of what the program that we're working is that we've got a new manager, and he took our defects of character, and we're new creations. First rest. He gave us rest. Our soul feels rest. We feel freed. But then we grabbed the yoke, put it on ourselves, step 10, 11, and 12, and we learned. And we moved forward with him guiding us. And that's where we got our soul rest. And then we felt satisfied. And I think that's a great message for some.
So going back to the serenity prayer, it's interesting because in the very beginning of it, it asks for our participation. It says, God grant me. Yeah. A grant isn't free. You have to apply for it. There's stuff you have to do to get the grant, right? You just don't sit on the bench at the community college and hope someone's going to pay your tuition. You have to apply for it. So you have to participate. It's a participation prayer, and I think sometimes we miss that. Well, God, just give it to me. No, there's that saying that the Lord will not render us white as snow without our cooperation. I like what it's somewhere in the NA basic text. It says complacency is the enemy of those of us with substantial clean time. So so whatever you think is substantial clean time for one person, it might be 24 hours and very substantial. Somebody else, it might be 24 years. But any form of complacency, it's our enemy to become complacent. And here's something I was thinking about yesterday when I was thinking about this topic, you guys, is we can get so busy doing recovery stuff, doing God's work, doing all that we end up resting on our laurels or our victories and successes in that work. And even though we're extremely busy and we're jumping through all sorts of hoops, we're really stagnant because we've gotten used. Well, gosh, I'm doing all this stuff, right? So I'm not resting on my laurels. I'm busy. Mm-hmm. And we miss it, right? And that's when we can become pharisaical. That's when we can become very judgmental. That's because we're not taking care of ourselves. We're taking care of everybody else, that kind of stuff. And what's the rule on the airplane? If it's going down, you take the oxygen first.
How would we know that we were doing that? We would need people in our lives that could speak truth into ourselves, and we would have to be able to be mature enough to accept it.
Well, if we're going to be in leadership, we're going to work with other people, we better have somebody to be accountable to. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, in your journey for asking somebody to sponsor you, please make sure they have one.
Yeah. But then even in that, because I was thinking of my sponsor, I call her weekly. She's in another program, but she's in another state. So I could easily say, I'm good and I'm doing all this stuff. So I need people like my husband,
local,
you guys that know, like, am I really good? And the Wednesday Zoom meeting that I go to for Came to Believe, I try to be truthful and honest in there. But that takes time. Because someone could be in my space and just have that sponsor and think that's fine. But then it ends up being resting on my laurels because she's in the Carolinas somewhere. She doesn't know what I'm doing. But I need other people around me, and I need to do step 10 and 11 and 12 myself and know if I'm getting comfortable or resting on my own.
I think that's when we have people, hopefully, we have people in our lives that we've given permission to call us out, even if they're wrong. Yeah, I'd rather, if you see something in me and you see me going down a road and the dragon's down at the end of that road, I would rather you call it out and you confront me with it and be mistaken. I'll get over the offense. But if you say nothing and you're right.
But then isn't that us taking other people's step 10?
Not if I've given you permission to do that. If I've said, so I have 5 men in my life that have that permission at any given time. Right. Mm-hmm. And the reason I have 5 is because some of them aren't local. There's 2 that are right here. Mm-hmm. And they have that permission and I need them. And they have before. They've said, hey, are you doing all right? You look pretty wiped out. Are you getting rest? Oh no, I'm fine. No, you're not. And actually, to tell you the truth, when we're talking about people of faith in the Christian faith, we don't even need permission from the other person. We're supposed to call each other out.
Right. In love.
In love. Yeah.
So
love.
I totally agree that very busy people could be resting on their laurels.
Yeah.
I mean, think of
They're
the guys
hiding in their busyness.
I go to 10 meetings a week. I'm good. I'm working my program. I go to meetings. I got 22 sponsees. You are, huh? What about this? What about in business? A business who has a great product, right? And it's got selling. They're busy making them and working on them and this and that. but they aren't looking at the next product that they better be developing, or the background and the things for the next thing for when the season runs out on this. It has applicability across the board, and absolutely busyness. I think you're right, Alicia. People will hide in their busyness in order to avoid having to sit for a minute. How many people do we know that just stay busy all the time? They never sit still. And you're like, can you just sit still? They'd have
I am
to think,
one of those people.
you know.
I'm very.
But you know what? Oh, and by the way, this is a good time for me to bring this up. Alicia, I got your guys' Christmas card today. What a great card! What a great card! And I was showing it to my wife, and it's a picture. To me, it's a picture of a couple of people that are just real. You know, you got the old truck in there, and you guys are together. Your husband's there with his ZZ Top beard, which I absolutely love. It's inspiring me to let this go longer. But there was a simplicity about it. There was a very comforting kind of feel about the card. That may or may not be how you feel about you guys, but what it showed me was this is what I strive for, is this kind of serenity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't come just by it coming. It just we have to engage, right? You guys had to make that card. You had to engage. You had to follow some instructions with the camera. You know, you had to do something to present that to the people that you love at Christmas. We have to do something to present our best selves to the people that we love, that we want to help to recover. And if we're not doing that, we probably ought to ask ourselves, why not? One of your talking points was how to notice and get back on track when you've been resting on your laurels. If nobody is pointing it out, how do you notice?
You know, that's it. Well, I'll just put a pin in here. I don't know what you're talking about that card, Monty, because I
You
didn't
got
get
one. It's in your mailbox. You live farther than he does.
Special. I have
got
no idea. Just as he says, it's the ones they love. Empty box.
It's in your mailbox.
Chance to
right
grow.
now.
There it is. There it is.
But no, how do you, well, if we're following our program and you're doing a step 10, I would make the case that when you're honest with yourself, you'll notice the promise is not coming true, one of them. You'll notice some struggle in one of the areas of bad habit that are left side of the inventory thing, I think. And then if you're honest, now if you're not, that's a different story. But that's where I catch it, Monty. I may not look at it for a day or two or three, but then I'll say, why didn't I see that? Well, I probably saw it, but I just wanted to sit in my you-know-what for a day or two because I just felt like I needed to pour me's.
Or those defects of character are just coming up and we're not doing anything about it. Like I'm just edgy and like mad at everybody, or that's a sign something's up.
We have the old tapes, like when Daryl talks about the old etchings. I mean, there's some old tapes that still kind of are comfortable to us. We're all still working on it. No matter how many years we've been doing this, we get an old tape comfort that comes once in a while, and we could say it's and you'll just let it sit with us. And how is that working for us?
Yeah, our recovery literature says the problem center is in the mind, right?
Yeah.
It's our thinking. Our thinking needs to change. We need to be willing to discard the old way of thinking. It's interesting because in the Hebrew culture, when you're talking about the heart, what's my heart desire? The heart and the mind are the same thing in the Hebrew culture. So wherever your thinking is, that's where your heart's at, and so it's a heart change, right?
It's a heart change.
Which we have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
God needs to do that.
Right. God's the one that makes that change. But again, he won't render us white as snow without our cooperation. So what's our cooperation? I think it's the surrender piece.
Mm-hmm.
okay, here I am. I'm filleting myself open. Have I been resting on my laurels today? Have I been complacent today, God? If I have, please show me. Show me, because I need to know, because I want tomorrow to be better. I want to be better for you. And then upon awakening, God, I remember what you showed me last night where I've been complacent. Help me not to be complacent today. I want to go a different direction. And here's the thing. When we ask God for help and assistance in that, don't you think for a minute that the enemy of our soul doesn't come right alongside and want to, throw a wrench at it. Because I'll be bebopping along, doing the worship song thing in the morning, getting myself ready for the day. And sure enough, before the next hour goes by, something comes across my thinking. It may be the enemy of my soul. It may be my own ego, but it's usually something that will derail me if I let it. And it never fails. It'll show up.
Yeah, that's when we need to learn to respond rather than react, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a great
with
example.
practice, we learn that just because we're doing the things and we're doing step 11 doesn't mean that our life is going to be perfect. It's not.
Right.
If we expect that, then we have a wrong view and we're not reading the Bible, because it doesn't say that life is going to be all rosy and perfect. And
Guys, so we want to make sure we have time for our closing song. But do you guys have any closing thoughts on this before we go that direction? And then I got a question for you about something else before we close today. Closing thoughts on resting on our laurels?
I just, I think it's worth doing this again, and we'll cover this again in a step 10 thing. But, I would just, I can't emphasize enough to somebody out there that's in recovery. If you're not in a program that's encouraging you to grow and to continue to take your inventory and grow in your conscious contact, get in one. Go find some people that seem to be getting better and growing every day and have this great advice. Reach out to us, come to a retreat. It's the access to the fourth dimension of existence, guys, comes when you do not rest on your laurels.
Yeah. Alicia?
I would say ask yourself, where are you resting on your laurels? And pick up somewhere, because you are. We all are. So be honest and say, what area of your life needs some work? Is it your marriage? Is it your health and fitness? Is it your step work? Is it what is it? And then don't beat yourself up. Be honest. And what can you do about it?
Yeah. So my closing thoughts, which I'll say now rather than at the end of the song, is simply this. Nothing changes if nothing changes. We say it all the time. It's a platitude that's been going around for years. Pay attention to it. So the question I have for you is, one of you share with the listeners how they can attend either a virtual retreat or a in-person retreat, because I know people are listening saying, you guys talk about the retreats all the time. How do I attend one of these things? What do I need to do? Because there's some coming up, right?
Well,
Right.
we have a virtual retreat January 10th and 11th. So you can go to cametobelieverecovery.org and sign up there. And it's 2 days online. You can do from home in your PJs. And then in person, Tom, I don't know if we have one before Malibu that's scheduled.
Do you have one at the end of January, maybe?
But that's San Bernardino,
Bernardino.
Salvation
It's
Army.
a Salvation Army. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have one in Nevada City in the spring, but the date's coming. So keep an eye out for dates, guys. But check the website. That's where the retreat dates will be. The virtual retreat's the next one. After that, we should be doing one in May. Then we definitely have one in Malibu and probably another one in Nevada City. And we're also looking towards Leesburg, Florida in November. No,
So-
May.
So what can a participant expect to experience, whether it's a Zoom retreat or whether it's a personal one? What can they expect?
They're going to go through all 12 steps. Mainly, they're going to do 1 through 9. and they're going to learn the tools that they need to work 10, 11, and 12. In the weekend, in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whether they do it virtual, it's only 2 days. Friday and Saturday, you'll get all this. And in person is 3 days. You go through the steps. You'll learn all about them. You will actually take the steps and sign off on it and be given these tools and be encouraged to begin to live 10, 11, and 12. You will finish the steps in the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Right, good deal. Celebrate recovery. Where am I going?
I know.
Came to believe recovery.org. Boy, am I going to have to make amends.
Yeah.
Came to believe recovery.org is the website. All right. Our closing song is by Matthew West. We're bringing him back again. And it is entitled The Hope of Christmas. Here's Matthew.
Take me back to 8 years old, the little church on a dead-end road, with a candle flicker in one hand and Dad's hand in the other. Take me back to silent night, my heart was full and the world was right. 'Cause right now the world looks nothing like those innocent Decembers. These days peace on earth is hard to find, and I need you to remind me one more time. You're still the hope of Christmas. You're still the light when the world looks dark. You're still the hope of Christmas. And you're still the hope of my heart. The snowflakes falling down like a blanket on this town. For a moment we can hardly see the pain this year has brought us. May the sick find healing's touch. May hatred's fight be won with love. And may every heart make room for you, the one who came to save us. 'Cause you're still the hope of Christmas. You're still the light when the world looks dark. You're still the hope of Christmas. And you're still the hope of my heart. You're the hope of bowed my head to pray tonight, felt my little girl by my side. She slipped her tiny hand in mine, and we both talked to you. And it took me back to 8 years old, my daddy's hand and a story told about heaven's love in the manger low, and a promise that's still true. You're still the hope of Christmas. You're still the light when the world looks dark. You're still the hope of Christmas. And you're still the hope of my heart. You're still the hope of Christmas. You're still the light when the world looks dark. You're still the hope of Christmas. You're still the hope of my heart.
Came to Believe Recovery strives to create and promote opportunities for life-changing spiritual experiences for individuals and families suffering from all forms of addiction. For more information, help, and support, visit cametobelieverecovery.org. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be your host on this episode of the Came to Believe Recovery podcast. And I would encourage you to like, bookmark, and subscribe to this show. When you do, you will join the Take 12 Recovery Radio family and will be notified of all of our recovery-focused shows throughout the week. Until our next broadcast, when we provide the essential spiritual tools needed to thrive by sharing our experience, our strength, and our hope through our stories of how we came to believe.
This has been a production of Take 12 Recovery Radio.
Kitty, kitty, kitty. Meow.
Woof, woof.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.